Halestorm, Into the Wildlife, 15 tracks, 56 minutes for the deluxe edition. Third studio album from the US 4-piece, released April 2015 via Atlantic. Produced by Jay Royce. 4 singles were released: Apocalyptic, Amen, I Am the Fire, and Mayhem. Taking the album number 5 in the US, number 10 in the UK, number 51 here in Australia. This is the band's highest charting album in the US to date. Go.
This is a really good album. Probably not their best, but not far away from it for mine. It's not the perfect album for me, but it certainly rocks. Lizzie's voice is phenomenal on this, which it normally is. It is production heavy, which is a bugbear of mine, as you know. For the most part, it's pretty tastefully done, for the most part. But there's a couple of tracks where there's this like underlying electro beat that can just fuck right off.
I was wondering how you go with some of the production on this.
It doesn't belong in it, and it's not necessary. Like, give me a decent kick and snare sound, and it's all it needed. There are a couple of flat spots on this album, though, and like the track "Dear Daughter," it's got to appeal to people because of its lyrics, and it's inspirational and uplifting. To me, it is like a well-performed nursery rhyme. Is sort of the vibe I got out of it. Lyrically, I agree with the message. Don't get me wrong. I'm not having on the message. The message is solid and sound. But just as a song, it's just not quite right. The guitar sound on this is pretty good as a whole. It sits in the background a bit too much on too many of the songs. But that allows the vocal to shine. So I think I know what they were going for. Yeah,
it's a trade-off.
Yeah, they just didn't quite get it right. I think actually the last album was mixed a bit better.
I'll go on record as saying I prefer the previous work to this album.
But this was still good. The high spots were pretty high, low spots were a bit too low, so it was sort of a weird one. But I do enjoy it, and the high spots for me are really good. I Am the Fire is a fucking enormous song, and that track alone sort of gives this album a lot of credibility for me. I love it. And then through the middle of the album, you get that bit of sort of southern rock, and
there's a bit of diversity in this.
And then you get the acoustic track. Well, it starts acoustic. I like it heavy, which builds nicely. And look, it's a 3-chord rocking belter, but it suits her. And I imagine they'd play it live and probably smack it out of the park. I enjoyed this album, but it's not perfect. I gave it 8 out of 10. The highlights are I Am the Fire, I Like It Heavy, Amen, Scream, and Mayhem.
Cool. My first thing is that it's interesting to note this album did pretty well here in Australia, considering it didn't get a lot of love from radio at all.
Any? At all?
Any.
I don't think you've got to play.
No. It's also, this is the part that irritated me. It's interesting to go through the credits and see there are 6 composer credits given to this outside of the 4 band members. That gives 10 composer credits in total on this record. No, that's not rock and roll. Just off the bat. Don't do that. That's almost baby metal territory. Don't do that. And I reckon that made this album suffer compared to their previous works. Mind you, I'm coming off harsh. I did give it a better score than you're thinking right now. This is one we have covered on the show before. I didn't rate it as highly as their previous works, but it did grow on me at that time, so I was interested to see how this would sit on me after a couple of years away from it kind of thing. Very heavily produced album. Even for me, it's a bit over the top, which is saying something. It kills some of the genuine rock feel for me. It sounds good, everything is captured well, but it's the amount of effects or emphasis points that are a bit too much for me. Lizzie has a great voice, one of the best, and the band have a great energy. I would have rather they just captured that and not gone down this path that is far too digitized. Why fuck with a good recipe? It's like adding an 8th spice to the kernel, 7 secret herbs and spices. You just don't need it.
It was 11 secret herbs.
Is it? Oh, fucking there you go. It's like adding a 12th then. Mr. fucking KFC fucking know-it-all. I'm sure you know the recipe as well, right?
No, but I've got a good KFC fact if you've got a moment.
Oh, okay. Go on.
Yeah, ever had a look at their Twitter?
No.
KFC's Twitter account. They've got like thousands of followers, and they follow 11 people. The Spice Girls and 6 guys named Herb. That's a fact. And if you don't think whoever at KFC did that deserves a pay rise, you're wrong.
That's very clever. I'll pay that. I can't believe we've gone from Halestorm to that, but all right, we'll go back to Halestorm again. Nice segue. The other side effect of adding a 12th spice is that it's too compressed overall. They deep fried it too long. They certainly went for big, but they pushed it too hard and went from big into crunched. And that is a bugbear of mine, which everyone should know by now. There is growth on this, however, some different things coming into the band's sound. It does push a little bit too pop for me at times, but I respect that this would easily make them more accessible at the same time, so they're trading things off. It's just that for me it detracts from what is honestly a great talented band, which is what I was saying before. When it gets put together like this, it just takes away from what you want out of a rock band. There's some interesting southern influences, like you were talking about, creeping in as well. There's good diversity in the tracks. It serves the album flow well, and the lyrics are certainly a highlight on this one. The lyric craft is fantastic. Yeah. And there's some real ball-tearing stuff in this, for all the stuff we're talking about. Some real deep and emotive stuff between tracks like Dear Daughter and Mayhem. You get the full range of the band's ability of songs. Like, that gives you the softest and the heaviest kind of moments there. I admire Lizzie's fierceness. If you want a modern-day inspiration for a woman who is certainly taking no prisoners, and look no further than her. It's little 80s-style touches here and there as well, which make it interesting. And while at the start it's a little bit off-putting, the deeper you get into it, the more it grows on you. It's certainly one worth investing a bit of time into. The bonus tracks available in this are interesting, but don't add anything that becomes required listening for me. All in all, it's a solid modern rock album. A bit too polished for me, and overall I think the early work is still better than this, but I am curious to see what happens next, which the new album is not far away now, which is good. But I personally they've stripped things back a bit. That's if they stay on this path, though, they could also be huge. So there's more of a decision to be made in that regard. It's a real crossroads kind of album.
New single sounds like they're going pretty heavy. I hope
the new single does sound like that.
Let's hope.
Is that the one-off?
Who knows?
And the rest of the album is something else where they go full-on Def Leppard. Overall, time probably hasn't improved this one for me. However, the shock is certainly diminished and allows me to appreciate this more on its merits. 8 out of 10, same as you. Gonna get mine. Mayhem, The Reckoning, I Like It Heavy, and What Sober Couldn't Say. I love the lyrics in that song particularly, so check it out for yourselves. Let us know what you think.